case of Hannah Cornelius shocked Stellenbosch, South Africa, unraveling a tragic and shocking story that left the community in utter disbelief. Hannah Cornelius was born on February 12, 1996, in Cape Town, South Africa. She grew up in an upper-class family with her parents, Willem and Anna Cornelius. Her father worked as a magistrate, and her mother was a lawyer. When she was 3 years old, their family welcomed her younger brother, whom she deeply cared for. From a young age, Hannah was quiet and well-behaved, never causing trouble for her parents. She was known for her kindness and selflessness, always caring for others. For her 16th birthday, instead of asking for presents, she decided to donate money to children in need, a tradition she kept on following for every birthday after that. Hannah was known by her friends as a fun-loving person who always went out of her way to help others. They admired her musical talent, especially her skill at playing the piano, which was her favorite instrument. She was a bright student, but while her parents encouraged her to pursue a career in law, she chose to study humanities. After high school, she enrolled in the University of Stellenbosch, one of South Africa's oldest universities. Her decision was different from her parents' wishes, but they eventually supported her choice and they were proud of her independent path. Although Hannah lived at a nearby ladies' residence, she still needed to commute to university. It was during this time that her grandmother passed down to her an old blue and white Volkswagen City Golf. In her second year, Hannah met Cheslin Marsh, a theology student. Like Hannah, Cheslin was dedicated to his studies, and they quickly became good friends. They often helped each other with their studies and shared a strong friendship, but there were no romantic feelings between them. After a busy week of studying and work, on a Friday evening, the two friends decided to go for some drinks. The night unfolded without any issues, and they enjoyed themselves. They stayed out until the early hours of Saturday morning. As the night came to an end, Hannah decided it was time to leave. Cheslin offered to walk Hannah back to the ladies' residence, as it was not safe for her to walk alone in Stellenbosch. Hannah appreciated his offer and accepted it. The two left their friends and made their way home without any problems. They reached Hannah's residence safely, but now Hannah was concerned about Cheslin getting home alone. Since her car was parked nearby, she offered to drive him. Cheslin insisted on riding his skateboard, but Hannah wouldn't let him. She knew her car was safer, especially at that hour, so they got into her Volkswagen and headed to Cheslin's residence. On May 27, 2017, at around 3:23 a.m., after giving her friend Cheslin a ride home, Hannah parked her car near her friend's house, and they sat inside the car talking. While they were chatting, four men, Vernon Whitboy, Nashville Julius, Eben van Niekerk, and Geraldo Parsons, quietly approached them, armed with a knife and screwdriver. Completely unaware, Hannah and Cheslin continued their conversation, not noticing the danger closing in. Suddenly, a loud bang on the door shattered their sense of safety. The passenger door was wrenched open, and a sharp screwdriver and a knife were thrust at them. The situation turned dangerous in an instant. The four men forced their way into the car, and Hannah and Cheslin found themselves caught in a carjacking. They stole money and valuables from both Hannah and her friend. Once they had taken everything, Nashville Julius, one of the attackers, left with some of the stolen items, while the other three decided to abduct Hannah and Cheslin. Eben van Niekerk climbed into the back seat with Cheslin and pinned him down, and the other two squeezed into the front with Hannah. They drove for a few miles before stopping and ordering Cheslin to get into the trunk. The criminal who had been in the front passenger seat moved to the back, and Hannah sat in the front with the man who was driving. Around 4:30 a.m., they stopped at a gas station, where security cameras recorded them. Vernon Whitboy went inside to try to withdraw money from Cheslin's account, but the PIN he had given him was incorrect, and this made Vernon furious. Throughout the ordeal, Hannah stayed calm and silent, staring straight ahead. The criminals assured her they would only use her car to return home and would release her, but they were lying. They first went to a dealer's house to buy substances, and by 5:30 a.m., they were in a neighborhood on the outskirts of Cape Town called Crayfontein. The men suddenly stopped the car. When Hannah asked why, they claimed they were just taking a smoke break and would continue soon, promising to return her car when they reached their destination. Then, two men got out and pulled Cheslin out of the trunk. After pushing him around, they forced him to walk a short distance away from the car and told him to lie down. As he lay on the ground, he saw two men looming over him, holding large bricks, and they brutally hit him with that, punishing him for providing the wrong pin. The men abandoned him at the scene, thinking he was dead. Cheslin didn't wake up until the next day, and he was left with lasting injuries, including the loss of hearing in one ear. Hannah, still in the custody of the criminals, was terrified and asked what they were doing. Around 6 a.m., the three men drove her to a remote location near a paintball field where they essayed her for about an hour and a half. The criminals later claimed that Hannah was visibly distressed and pleaded for her life during the ordeal. By 7:40 a.m., they forced her back into the vehicle and drove about 12 miles to a rural road next to a vineyard and stream. At this location, they dragged Hannah from the car and stabbed her in the neck area. But they were unsatisfied and crushed the young woman's head using a 35-kilogram rock. After committing their crime, the criminals left the scene and didn't attempt to hide, as many would expect. Instead, they continued their spree. They targeted a woman walking alone on her way to work, chasing her down and stealing her phone. By 1 p.m., the criminals were still driving Hannah's stolen car and had already victimized several others. One of their victims was a woman they abducted, taking her to a gas station in Brackenfell. There, security cameras captured Vernon Whitboy withdrawing money from the kidnapped woman's account, while she was in the back seat of the vehicle with the other two criminals. After the robbery, they drove a little ahead and allowed the woman to go. The gang continued their crime spree, moving to another town where they targeted and robbed another woman. Eben van Niekerk then decided to leave and asked to be dropped off at a nearby spot. Meanwhile, two farm workers discovered Hannah's body at the location where she had been abandoned. The police arrived quickly and retrieved the body for an autopsy. The autopsy revealed that the victim was essayed and had suffered severe trauma, including multiple bruises and injuries to her body. The cause of death was determined to be a fatal stab wound to the neck, which pierced a vital gland, followed by blunt force trauma to the head from a large object, which was believed to be a rock. In the meantime, Cheslin regained consciousness and stumbled down the road and reached the nearest house. The couple who answered the door was initially scared, thinking he was a gang member, and asked him to leave. But Cheslin insisted they call the police, and soon they understood the seriousness of the situation. Within minutes, the police arrived and Cheslin told them everything he could remember: the faces of the men, the car, and where they had gone. He desperately wanted to help find Hannah, but tragically it was already too late. Just 2 hours earlier, while he was still unconscious, Hannah had already been found and confirmed dead. The police were on the hunt to find the criminals. By 2:10 p.m., nearly 11 hours after the attacks on Hannah and Cheslin, undercover officers spotted Geraldo Parsons and Vernon Whitboy. The police started chasing the criminals, realizing they were being chased, sped off in an attempt to escape. The chase eventually led to a rural road near a farm, where Geraldo and Vernon abandoned their vehicle and tried to flee on foot, but they were quickly arrested. Later that day, Eben van Niekerk was also taken into custody, and the following day, authorities began searching for Nashville Julius. The crime deeply shocked the South African community, with those close to Hannah and Cheslin struggling to comprehend the tragedy. At Stellenbosch University, where Hannah had been a student, protests and marches were organized, demanding improved security. In the months that followed, Hannah's parents established a foundation in her memory, focused on providing support and resources to underprivileged communities. Anna Cornelius, Hannah's mother, chose to leave her successful law career to dedicate her time to the foundation, feeling it was the best way to honor her daughter's legacy of helping others. However, following Hannah's death, her mother's health began to decline. In March 2018, Anna went for her usual morning swim but did not return. Her body was later found on a nearby beach. While some speculated about the circumstances of her death, her husband Willem believed that she was emotionally exhausted after their daughter's death, and the challenging sea conditions led to her accidental drowning. Willem also spoke about their youngest son, who has autism, and how he still struggles to understand the loss of his sister. Every day, he would look at Hannah's photo and ask when she would be back. Willem expressed that their family had been changed forever by the loss of both his daughter and Anna, and that he and his son were merely surviving, trying to cope with the emptiness left behind. In November 2018, the 4 men involved in the crime stood trial. Throughout the proceedings, they displayed blatant disregard for the seriousness of their actions. They mocked the court, laughed, made offensive gestures, and used foul language toward those in attendance, showing no remorse for the pain they had caused. Their behavior during the trial made it clear that they felt no guilt for what they had done and were indifferent to the consequences of their actions. At the conclusion of the trial, the men received their sentences. Vernon Whitboy, Eben van Niekerk, and Geraldo Parsons were convicted on all 10 charges. Each of them was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. Nashville Julius, who played a role in the robbery and later fled with stolen items, was found guilty of burglary and kidnapping and was sentenced to 22 years behind bars. Many of those following the trial, including family members and advocates from non-governmental organizations, expressed relief at the verdict, though there remained a feeling that the sentences did not fully reflect the gravity of the crimes committed. Hannah's father, who had been a magistrate, attended the trial and after the proceedings, made the decision to leave his career in the judiciary. He stated that, after losing his daughter, he didn't feel he could be fair in future cases because the pain from the loss had affected him deeply. This tragedy serves as a heartbreaking reminder that our society must enforce stricter laws and harsher punishments, so that no family has to endure the pain of losing a loved one to such cruel acts. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more true crime content. See you next time.